we collectively are live with Broomstick here, doing the political and Manuresphere coping that people in this space are known to do. I just have some content I want to go through, so we're going to go through it on stream as per what I prefer to do.
Eric Goldberg. Today I'll be talking about, well, let me just say briefly, liquid.
This guy just shows pictures, so I think I don't even think I want to like watch his video per se. I'm just going to listen to it, you know. But yeah, we're going to start with Rabbi Goldberg. Apparently he's about to rave about Liquid IV. I assume so. I mean, Liquid IV helps me get out of hangovers quite often, so pretty good channel. But you know, it is he is probably the most extreme position the Care Bears are letting us have, if that makes sense. Like he is the outlet the Care Bears allow us to have. I don't know how else to put it.
Welcome back to here, Goldberg. Today I'll be talking about, well, let me just say briefly, Liquid IV is utterly revolting. I don't know how it became popular.
I will say this.
I prefer to have emergency any day, every day over that crap concoction.
People put it's way too sweet. I'll only eat a quarter at a time.
We'll go into the nitty-gritty implications later on, but I want to highlight some reactions which I felt were more compelling, or at least telling, as to the psyche of these people on the internet.com. One pattern I noticed were folks, quite sanctimonious, going, "This is how MAGA dies," with thunderous applause. Why don't you go and suck some donkey bull for a minute, okay? So these people will call themselves MAGA, nationalists, Nacional Libertarianismos. They will do the Christian Nat routine third position. But then when it comes to having the implications, the real world, they turn into a salted snail. Guess what? With nationalism, it's not just hiding under your bed and enjoying your culture. You also have to impose your will around the world. This is how it's always been done, to protect your resources, supply chains, your security interests. You can attempt autarky, but it's very difficult. There's also some tough choices to make within your borders. So remember when Marjorie Taylor Greene was being the queen of MAGA, and then they started doing deportations, and she squeals that it's hurting the economy and has to stop. So if any of these folks giving themselves a reason to pause and say, why do I believe this stuff, or is it just a country club I belong to? This fellow, I assume he has some better content. He's a Catholic type, if I'm not mistaken, but just this post I was chuckling over. As a right-winger, who describes themselves that way? As a Dallas fan, as a black man, it's very difficult not to get excited about stories of heroic surgical strikes executed by highly trained military men ending a war hours after it started with minimal loss of life, even when you know it portends darker things, even if you know USG is the only regime change that matters. What do you want to believe? It's our equivalent of bombs with rainbow flags on them. Yeah, some pondering going on there. And I'm not even going to suggest that's where he stands, but it is actually a good encapsulation of many of these people that are right-wing, in the sense that they see it as vibes, it's memes, it's cool. But when it comes...
Yeah, that's true. This is like the Magatard take, you know?
Comes down to it, why do you subscribe to certain ideals? And what are you willing to
What's
do
up,
yourself about
Griffith?
it? I very much enjoyed the Bricks Copers, because someone had posted, this is what happens.
we almost got to pull up, I think we will try to pull up the bricks
when you attempt BRICS expansion. One of their minions replies, "Yeah, but BRICS is simply an economic agreement. It's not a military alliance like NATO." So another guy retorts, "Oh, was Ukraine part of NATO? I'm sorry. Yeah, these BRICS people are insufferable. They go around, it's inevitable, multipolar order. These crackpot nations like Russia, South Africa, India, and Brazil, you know, China's in its own category. We can give them a break." And when loosely defined, the Western coalition outperforms and humiliates this inevitable BRICS, they turn around, "America's a terrorist state. You can't do that." Guess what? It's a competition. You can shut your mouth. And it's just funny because
Hans Briggs Hello, great to see you again, Hans.
Mr. Eel, I was supposed to be allowed to inspect your palace today, and your guards won't let me into certain areas.
Hans, we've been through this a dozen times. I don't have any weapons of mass destruction, okay, Hans?
Then let me look around so I can ease the UN's collective mind.
Hans, you're breaking my balls here, Hans. You're breaking my balls.
I'm sorry, but the UN must be firm with you. Let me see your whole palace, or else.
Or else what?
Or else, we will be very, very angry with you. And we will write you a letter telling you how angry we are.
Okay, I'll show you, Hans. You ready? Stand ready to your left. Read them all. Good. There you go, Hans Briggs! How you like that, you fucking cocksucker? You have any idea how fucking busy I am, Hans Briggs? Well, fuck you! You want inspection? Well, inspect that, you butt fucking piece of shit! What, you think I'm just a petty arms dealer? I'm planning the attack! Congratulations, Team America! You have stopped nothing.
I guess that's Hans Blix, not Bricks, but it makes me think about that.
Because the supposedly super-powered BRICS countries are usually incompetent, at least militarily speaking. Maybe long run they win out with a currency, remains to be seen. In this case, we have a fellow who can be insightful at times, but is also quite
Devin Stack, yeah, so-called Dark Household, yeah. I've heard this guy's stuff a little bit.
If you destabilize Venezuela, there's gonna be refugees.
So what's been happening the last 10 plus years under Maduro? Has there not been inflation, narco violence, lots of murders, and people were trying to escape the country? That's why we have refugees present within the United States of America. These are the same who might turn around, oh, Bukele, yeah, he's helped El Salvador. El Salvador used to be extraordinarily violent and less economic opportunity. Well, if they improve things back home, people will have less reason to flee. But in the minds of these folks, everything's a rock. Got to keep hitting the button again. It's a rock. It's a rock. It's a rock. And you go, my gosh, do you really believe these leaders are so perfect? No, far from it. I mean, Chadam, and you can be against the invasion of Iraq strategically speaking, which even Schwarzkopf pointed out it was a bad idea. But Chadam was not a good leader. Chadam started 2 regional wars in the space of a decade, which destroyed his military and a lot of his economy. He did not invest in domestic development. And when the Americans took over, you looked at the state of the economy, you had these factories being run very much on the basis of government money. They were not competitive at all because they were handing out jobs to people based upon blood ties or patronage. And that's what you end up with. So because they saber rattle about the Care Bears, even though how much did Saddam really do to take out the Care Bears? How much was Maduro doing when it came to the Care Bears? Well, we'll get to that in a minute. Oh, look.
I mean, the whole like, all I know about Venezuela, and I'm not saying like I know a lot, but I will, like, I think this is pretty, if you do go down the rabbit hole, this is pretty true. That essentially what you had going on in Venezuela is obviously there are the high oil reserves there, but you think about, like, okay, the Care Bears more or less, you know, wield the U.S. military like a big stick for their own, you know, agendas. And, you know, that's what happened. The U.S. military / the Care Bear military came in and attacked. But then you think about Venezuela, and, you know, this was a place with a lot of oil reserves, and, like, who were they selling the oil to? It was, you know, the Russians. It was the Chinese. And what are those? Those are traditionally, I'll say it, like, communist kind of ideological countries, like, traditionally. So it's a different archetype of Care Bear. It's like, you know, you got the old Soviet Care Bear kind of remnants, and then you have, like, the capitalist Care Bear. You think about, like, the wealthy Care Bear. So it's like, you know, it's like a Care Bear on Care Bear violence in a way. It's like a Care Bear on Care Bear conflict. It's just two very ideologically different classes of Care Bear.
Another highbrow intellectual.
What's the pretend reason we're at war with Venezuela, and what is the real reason? I assume it's something to do with Care Bears.
You know, I warned people years ago that as the JQ became mainstream, it would become dominated by the most embryonic imbeciles on the planet. People who will start looking for a tribesman in their everyday life. They will, at a certain stage, not be able to function without the specter of the schnoz. Now, did any of these folks stop to look at Maduro's ancestry in the early life section on Wikipedia? Because that might, jostle their narrative a tad. And they were going,
By the way, we might have to take a look at a video of this, but it's really sad what's going on in Argentina, in particularly the Patagonia region. One of the most beautiful natural landscapes in the world, and people are kind of pointing to a guy with Care Bear land. He has Care Bear land citizenship, and allegedly there was a Care Bear origin, like a Care Bear land grenade. An IDF grenade that went off in Patagonia and allegedly caused a lot of fires. And I don't know if that's the updated narrative. I got to look back into it, but that's what I saw yesterday.
Machado because she's pro Care Bear.
and then, as it turns out, Rubio was advising Trump not to put her in place because she's incompetent, she doesn't know what's going on, and she doesn't have any support in the country. So immediately, these people that are fixated on the Care Bears get utterly humiliated. And you could go, yeah, but this bankster stands to profit off of the Venezuelan bonds. Well, it's not like Venezuela was well run to begin with. So you just want to preserve these utterly corrupt regimes because they flex a little bit when it comes to the tribe. I mean, come on, folks. This is just embarrassing. By the way, if you subscribe to the belief it's all Pax Judaica, everything's compromised, foreign policy, economic policy, domestic policy.
I mean, the whole Pax Judaica thing, I think Goldberg himself needs to do a video on it, because think about this, the person who I think did the best about Pax Judaica, we'll even just type it in, something like that. It should come up. Yeah, we'll have to watch this maybe in the Political Cope stream in the future. Put it on Political Cope. But this guy, Predictive History, Professor Jiang, his first name is hella Rice, so I'm not even going to attempt to say it. But Professor Jiang, he, I think, did the best coverage of this topic. And the argument essentially is we're in a more and more globalized world where the individual ethnocentrism, all that kind of stuff is being stomped out, unless you have some kind of certain archetype, right? Your non-cream cheese, stuff like that. Maybe you're even Care Bear yourself or something. In certain pockets, you're allowed to kind of be ethnocentrist and stuff. But, modernity's flattening everything. Tech is flattening everything. All this is happening right now, right? But amidst all this, Professor Jiang and other people's argument is, well, these Care Bears, they're the only ones who are advocating for ethnocentrism, advocating for collective group interest. They're one of the only groups who feel a collective sense of identity, and we need to move forward as a collective, and his argument is because of, and this plays into a multifaceted, right? You think about espionage, modern espionage, they're probably one of the best at this because of all this aforementioned stuff I talked about. And Professor Jiang and other people who talk about Pax Judaica, their theory and their postulation is that, well, these people might end up instead of being a Pax Americana where it's okay, who wields the biggest stick right now in the world? Well, it'd be the U.S. military, arguably controlled by the Care Bears in a certain way. Maybe not directly, but definitely have a huge monetary trail there. But the Pax Americana, and you point to things the B-2 stealth bomber. You point to things like the F-35 or the nuclear arsenal and nuclear sub-arsenal and stuff like that, where it's okay, yeah, this probably is the strongest military in the world right now, but at the same time, like what's it going to look like 2035 and onwards, it's an interesting topic to discuss.
Well, obviously, filing a suit in court isn't going to matter. And
the decline of the U.S.
voting for Thomas Massey isn't going to matter. So what are you left with? We do the whole Scott Galloway routine. What's stopping Groypers from forming little Chetnik squads and doing Mangione?
Jay Cransom, Goldberg, the TFL in denial. Who bothers women behind desks where they work? What a loser. Yeah, I love his stories about like talking to like he'll be like, "Oh, I had this crush on the IHOP waitress, so I went back to IHOP to write my book." And
try. They're not going to do it though.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, yeah, like that. I mean, that's Inkwell shit right there. Let's be honest. You could call Inkwell shit almost anything where if you have to do any kind of like placating or like going above and beyond to get baseline like human connection. That's basically like Inkwell shit, because we all know that people from certain walks of life with certain like face cards, certain status or wealth or connections they were born into, they don't have to do all that stuff.
Because that requires them to live in the real world. And I'm going to expound on this when it comes to the Jeffrey Pill segment. But you notice that with people on the right, conservative, there's a lot of this talk, raising the stakes, like back under Biden, it was the end times are coming. Oh, there's going to be a revolution. But they don't want to do anything. They don't want to actually risk their life.
Do Goldberg's approaches actually lead to anything? It's interesting you mentioned that, Griffith, because I think the only times he ever mentions getting lucky is it's something like a puja off of Hinge. So I don't know. I mean, maybe he'd say differently, but to me it seems like he only ever pulls off of Hinge, which is the only way I've had success in the last 5 years, and it's been like a very infrequent thing. So I don't know, he's probably maybe having a similar experience.
Lives. They don't want to risk their freedom or their ability to consume garbage. It's all returning to
99% of the guys just date off Hinge, it feels
we
like.
can post a picture.
That's very hyperbolic, but
white women are the most beautiful, but they're being brainwashed.
I mean, I guess that's fine. Equally crucial is the dilemma being faced by Catboy, because he's gone from, it's neocon intervention, we can't do it.
No, we should.
No, Z-Man, I actually didn't buy his new book. I think what happened was he waited he released one about the Care Bears, and I think it's supposed to be like, it talks about like the Tao, and it talks about the certain like holy scriptures, I guess. And in like I guess my issue with that whole thing was he had to release it sooner, I think, but I think the I don't know, I just don't think I'm interested in looking at it, because it's like I feel like since he started talking about, hey, I'm releasing this book, I feel like there's been just too much overwhelming evidence about like just like other things, and the Gaza issue's gotten worse, and the just the whole like Care Bear Land conflict's gotten worse, and all that time since he started talking about it. And he's like, okay guys, it's finally here. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, like what's there even to discuss anymore? You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like my mind's already kind of like made up on the topic. I still kind of want to look at it. Like it'd be a book where if my local library ever randomly have it, I'd probably pick it up. You guys would be surprised. Like at my local library, I found Rational Mail there, like Rollo Tomato, and I found some other like Manuresphere books there before. But yeah, like if Goldberg randomly, which I think would be highly unlikely, because like I think libraries just buy things because it's like, oh, it sold X amount of copies, maybe we should pick this up. I don't think Goldberg's ever quite there. But yeah, it's one of those things where like if I could get it for free, I would take a look at it. But I'm not really interested in sending like a Care Bear $10 just so I can see what he has to say about this topic. Honestly,
We should do it. We should take the oral, but not really be involved. No, it's the Care Bears.
He's tied himself into a bunch of knots, and it's become embarrassing. This is what happens whether he was just trying to do it for the
wait, yes. Okay, Jay Cranston 5616. This is really important. trip to Mexico, he struck out entirely while complaining about hearing women getting with others in the same hotel. Then the whole Crimson Capsule, they have bad attitude here. Sorry towards you, yes. Yeah. So guys, look up his Goldberg does Mexico City or something like that. You'll see it. I think the thumbnail is like hot air balloons. I think it's like pretty obvious, like the video I'm talking about. You guys could easily find it. But in that video, like he talks about, like, I don't know, he talks about, like, he does this like kind of like cringe cope thing that like all the passport maxers do in this space, where it's like, oh, you know, I'm not planning on getting with a girl, and I'm secure if I don't get a girl while I'm doing my passport max trip, but if it does happen, it would be nice. And then they do this whole other, it's like, oh, I'm just there, you know, for the culture. And that's nice, and I'm definitely an advocate for that, right? Where it's like you have to like just like if you are going to go to these other places, you should genuinely be interested in it, there for the place. And if you do want to have like some kind of genuine connection, you know, if you actually authentically speak the language, if there's no language barrier, if you are genuinely interested in the culture, that's going to kind of provide some social lubricant where it's like maybe you could have, you know, some kind of human experience at these places. But these guys who, you know, they just live in the US, and they go on their, you know, 4 allowed weeks of vacation per year at their corporate job or whatever. They go on this like passport trip, and they just like they do this coping thing where it's like, I'm just going there for the culture, man. But they know, like, in the back of their mind, it's like, wouldn't it be nice if I meet this like foreign baddie who's like way more submissive than like US women, and who's, you know, super into me because of, you know, geomaxing and, you know, stuff like that. So I don't know, it's just kind of like a cope. I think I talked about this on a past stream, where it's like dudes do this thing where they would like every time they would travel for some reason, they'd be like, oh, like, I don't know, it'd be like spring break, we're going to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, or something like that. Dudes do this coping thing. We're like, bro, I'm gonna get laid, bro. I'm gonna get laid. We're going to Fort Lauderdale, bro, with the boys. It's just, you know, it's just like, it's kind of like a cope, because it's like the statistical, like, there's a possibility, yes, but it's like you can also be struck by lightning and like all that other stuff. So
pigs, but he got all these Muslim cells, all these foreigners, all these ethnics to chant.
Jay Cranston says CDMX. I think that means the city of Mexico, or Mexico City specifically. I think that's maybe the airport abbreviation, CDMX. I'm not sure, but you're talking about Mexico City. I know that much. Jay Cranston says Mexico City is easy, with exclamation marks. I wonder if that's true. I have not been there myself. I heard good things about Merida, I think it's called. It's on the Yucatan. Merida, I think, seems really cool, but it also, I think, seems more expensive than Mexico City, but it also seems like there's less cartel activity there, and it's in general one of the more safer parts of the Mexican country is the Yucatan. But Mexico City I would be interested in going to. I heard good things about Roma Norte. That's where like the expats go. I don't know. I think that's one of those things where you just kind of have to like grab your balls and just do it. You know, at some point be like, okay, I'm a man, like, and it's not like I'm gonna be a successful like breeding male here anyway, and in the United States of Care Bearism. So yeah, you know, maybe Jay Cranston, let me know, man. Let me know if you think Mexico City is a good place to date, where you would go, if you would avoid Roma Norte, or if you think that's a good place, or I don't know. And what do you mean by easy to hook up, easy to find like more submissive women? I don't know. I'm curious.
Chant against the Care Bears. Now he's trying to be Mr. Snowgnat, and they're turning on him. It's like, dude, you.
I will say this: if you are like a, 6 foot plus like white guy, I mean, you should get choosing signals if you go. I mean, I would assume, right? You definitely have a higher propensity of getting choosing signals down there than you do here.
Got it on yourself because you don't have any integrity. And someone's going to, yeah, but you have to watch more hours of his live stream. Not going to do it. Not interesting. Okay. By the way, I've defended the kid many times before, so it's not like I have a vendetta against him. But he may need to file for a human rights asylum in China or North Korea. All right, this is a minor one, but
Wait,
some
did he mess up his own audio?
in China or North Korea. All right, this is a minor
Yeah,
one,
he did.
but some guys were going, there's 6 million fertile women that can be used as surrogates or trad wives. I would only point out...
Jay Cranston says, I got with 3 in Mexico City in a week. He's in State. Oh yeah, he's in Washington. Yeah, dude, in Washington. That's like California 2, the sequel to California 1, man. Washington State. Yeah, that's crazy liberal. That would take a year to get with 3. Dang, man, 3 in a year is pretty impressive. To quote BPJ, guys look back on a year after they had 3 lays, and they look back and say, damn, I had a pretty good year. But that's also, that's sad that's how just like asexual society is now. I wouldn't even say asexual, but it's like faux sexual, like pseudo-sexual. Like, society is not real right now. Like, sex will be flaunted in your face, but no one's actually really having it. But yeah, like three in a year. That's pretty like accurate, but that's still sad to think about. Like, when I was a 14, 15-year-old dude, and all I could think about was like, oh yeah, I'm almost getting to that age. I'm almost ready to have sex. Here in another like couple years, I'll be ready. Like, I was thinking that this is something where like, you're like, meeting a girl, it's not like hard. Like, girls are just kind of out there, but the whole like feminism and Care Bearism and like all that stuff really took that away. And in Washington State, yeah, that like, it'd be even harder there than a lot of other places. Like, the easiest time I ever had was obviously in college, but I also went to college in a conservative state, in a like a small college town, and I think like it was like a big D1 school, so I think all those things played a factor. When I went to grad school, it was like a very liberal city in a big city, and it was like a private institution. So yeah, all those played a factor. That was a huge mistake. Like, I think I did a lot better in the I would go like to, if I ever had to go back to school, I would go to something like UT, like U Texas or something. Like, I think it's good to go to somewhere that's like a conservative, like a state with some kind of like conservative identity. Like, you can't, this whole like, oh, I'm gonna go to, Seattle, and I'm gonna go get laid in Seattle, and like that kind of like that stuff just doesn't make sense a ton. The mind rot just runs so deep in those places.
The Venezuelanas I've seen on dating apps and met in real life all looked pretty strongly indigenous, or they had those features, like mestizos. I have the suspicion that people look at the supermodels from Venezuela and they assume that it's...
Jay Cranston, what apps were you using to pull women in Mexico City? Because it doesn't seem like Hinge has a big international audience, but Hinge seems to be like the app that the US women at least take. Like, I'm not saying that women take the app seriously, but if you are actually going to date someone or get a lay, like, Hinge would be the app to do it in the US. But it doesn't seem like that's the international app. Like, it seems like you have to use Hinge or Bumble or one of these other like niche apps, like I don't know, like Raya or whatever. Like, I don't know, what are people using to what are like the apps for all the baddies who actually are willing to go out on dates and sleep with you? what are they using?
Like a 90% Euro country. I don't believe that's the case in any shape whatsoever. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's not going to stop conservatives. I mean, a lot of these base conservatives, snowgnats, go for the swarthiest of Filipinas or Cambodians. It is what it is. All right, moving on to Venezuela itself. This is an impressive operation, relatively minimal loss of life on the American side that we're aware of. They did kill maybe 30 plus either Venezuelan or Cuban security personnel, and this is a massive humiliation for BRICS, for Venezuela, for the pink tide, chavismo, whatever you want to call it. As much as people are trying to liken everything to Iraq, it looks like they're going to keep a lot of the socialist bureaucracy and administration. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because you say little Delcy or Cabello, the head of the armed forces, they can just hunker down and fight. But remember, if you can yank the president and his wife in his pajamas, kind of like Air Force One style, you almost certainly have geolocation on all the head honchos. So, a quick press of a button.
I did not play D1 NCAA at the D1 school I went to. I was in the stands a little bit. I just had a good academic scholarship, and I also, one of my parents has a foreign passport, so I used that to help I used that to kind of like finesse the system for a diversity scholarship on top of that. So I had about like a half ride, I'd say, which looking back, I think was definitely the way to do it. And that was, this is for my 4-year school experience, so saved a lot of money. When I went to grad school, I did have a little bit of a scholarship, but not nearly close to a half ride. And I went to a more expensive school, which, I fell into the whole trap of like going where, oh, they're high ranked for my program, bro, I should go here. But that school ranking thing, that's like a Care Bear marketing agenda. Doesn't really apply to like real life success, really, to some degree though. I mean, if you get into Yale, Harvard, you should probably go there, but when you stop talking about like, oh, this program is scraping the top 10 and I got in, I should go there, maybe that's not. Yeah. I don't know. I mostly, whatever status I got in college, I mostly got it through just participating in like organizations and clubs and stuff. And you throw enough house parties, people start to respect you. And that's cool, Jay Cranston. You use Bumble in Mexico City. Yeah, that's awesome. I'll have to try that out, honestly, man. I'll have to I'll have to go over there. But yeah, I would play the. I don't know much about international travel, and I kind of want to just get my feet wet. The last time I was doing anything international was. I mean, I went to Europe for a little bit, but that was it. I went to Canada in like 2019 just to vibe out and just see what like Toronto looked like and stuff. This is back when I was blue capsuled though. But you could kind of almost even see the decline back then, if I'm being honest. But yeah, I'd have to try Bumble in Mexico City. That's a good idea.
These people are going to be gone. Most of them are in their 50s or 60s. Do they really want to die prematurely? They probably all have an offshore bank account with at least 20 mil. They can just retire or alternatively remain in a power sharing type dynamic, the political system continuing to make money and then give their speeches, shake their fists, fist each other. That's probably their best option. You could have Bolivia or Añez. She was nominally leftist, but she governed differently, even though it didn't go so well. Lenin Moreno is another example. So you don't have to necessarily look at it as it's going to devolve into chaos. A lot of these people are just obsessed with doomerism, and again, you wonder why they even exist. Could we begin to see further dominoes fall a la Cuba or Nicaragua? You've got that violet-haired SJW woman who's co-president now. It would be nice to see them nudged in a different direction. And considering we have pretty good relations with Bukele, now with Manuresphere.
What do you guys think about going to El Salvador? I actually heard really good things, and obviously it's probably very safe now for us, people who observe baseline civic rules about society. But I guess my only apprehension would be going over there and just like I don't know, like if you, like no one wants to end up in a draconian prison, right? But I'm not saying that. But I don't know if I got like framed or some weird shit. But that, I don't know. They probably, the American embassy and all that. I don't think that's. It's weird though. I don't know what kind of like, it's a weird thing. You see those prisons in El Salvador, and you think about like there might be like 1% of those guys are like falsely, in there. But I'm not even saying it might be even lower than 1%, but there's someone in there that's their life. They're in that kind of prison where they don't even shut the lights off. You have to sleep with a towel over your head the rest of your life. They're in there falsely, and I don't want to be like a whole like pussy about that, but I do want to like point out that is like kind of a reality when you take this draconian option. But I also do want to point out that like sometimes societies get to a point where things are so bad where it's like, all right, who's the dictator? Yes, okay, draconian prisons. All right, let's do it. And I want to throw this out there about Bukele. He kind of like uplifted his country out of poverty by getting them on a standardized Bitcoin. He, obviously cleaned up the streets with the whole prisons thing. Like, there's a lot of things that the guy did that were hella risky that has paid off. And his country's actually like very travelable to right now. So, Jay Cranston, this is very interesting. I love Vancouver, Canada, way better than Seattle. Interesting. Yeah, I was maybe I have to go over there. I've heard honestly, when I was in Seattle last, I had a good time, but I didn't really do stuff around Seattle. Like I went to Mount Rainier. I hiked around Rattlesnake Lake. So I did like outdoorsy stuff, and then I went to the San Juan Islands, and I did like whale watching over there. Saw like humpback whales, orcas, and stuff. It was so cool. Dude, so many bald eagles out there too. It's literally like a whole big ass nature preserve. Like it's so beautiful out there. But yeah, the city of Seattle itself is kind of a shithole. Like, yeah, it really sucks. Like I hate walking around those streets. I hate even just seeing those streets. So many like drugged out people, and they're literally handling out like, oh, safe needles here, bro, safe needles, and then it's weird because they still have all these like museums open and all this, like, oh, come on in, this is the museum, come to the Space Needle, bro. And it's so weird. I thought about going to Vancouver. I just wasn't in the mood to deal with borders and stuff while I was in Seattle. But I guess not. If I ever go back up there, I'd go check out Vancouver. I want to kind of see what that's about. But it's also like, I don't know, I'm interested in Vancouver, I guess, because I'd wonder if there's some like Asian baddies up there who'd be into me. Alex Prince, I feel like something big is about to pop off. Yeah, the Maduro thing was kind of like unexpected. Like it happened overnight. I kind of just wasn't, I was kind of on my whole nothing ever happens chud life, and then something happened, and I was like, something happened.
I believe the head of the Costa Rican government as well. It wouldn't be too difficult to pull off as an operation. I would be cautious with Mexico, just because that's where you would get bogged down with a lot of low IQ but irate, indignant, indigenous types that are addicted to leftism. Of course, the situation in Caracas does not bode well for the Iranians. And there was a lot of coke back in summer of 25.
They've got 90 million strong. Go overwhelm the Care Bears. Paper Dome. LOL.
And you have to realize those decapitation strikes were extraordinarily damaging. The Middle East does not just operate on next guy who's waiting in the wings with his LinkedIn resume. It's blood ties, and it's decades of cultivating these relationships, oftentimes, two men together, maybe one man on top of the other man, mounting. And so when you eliminate them, it's difficult to just...
Goldberg tries to like slip in these little like quips and stuff, and I feel like it's really funny when you first start listening to him, but then like when you get to your like 100th plus Goldberg video, you're like, bro thinks he's a comedian, bro thinks he's a jester, bro thinks he's jester maxed. Like, come on, bro.
Rebuild.
Just give me the information slop and let me get out of here.
That because they've lost between scientists. You can't just train up a new scientist in a couple of months. military leaders, especially special operations, clandestine, that kind of stuff, it takes years. And so not only was there much damage done to the security forces, to Quds Force, also to Hezbollah, and so you never know. As much as libertarians claimed, if you put sanctions on the country, they cling to the regime. Not when they can't eat. They're getting frustrated, and the latest thing they were going to be given $7 USD a month as a subsidy, even though the full array of
should I react to this Dapper Dev guy? Yeah, I've seen him. I've seen like his videos. I never actually like watched them though. So let me know what you guys think about Dapper Dave.
Of government support has been cut off. They just don't have money anymore. This meme of Iran is independent from the Rothschilds is a bunch of nonsense. They're a poorly run kleptocracy. And who is going to really be inspired by these mullahs? I mean, come on. A guy wears a diaper on his head. So if the Care Bears, if America...
One advantage the Iranians have is they can really unite around the whole, we was Persians, you know, we was King Darius II, you know. We was the immortals, we was Persians, you know. The Iranians can do that, and that's, you know, they have that ethnic sense of identity, and that goes back, you know, it's in their blood, you know, it's in their DNA, like, they really were Persians, you know. We was, like, so they do have that is one advantage they do have, and they have the numbers advantage. So
more precision strikes. Let's say you take out the Ayatollah, his son, and the runner-up. That would give a window of opportunity for the military to move in, maybe establish a sort of al-Sisi form of regime temporarily. I'm not against the Pahlavis coming back because it gives historical continuity. It also prevents the head of state one day being an Ahmadinejad, like someone who's just going to muck everything up in order to appeal to the conservative poor. Regardless of what happens, the new state has to go after the Muslim cells hard, just absolutely crush calm, take out these individuals, because there's going to be some kind of insurgency. I don't believe it would have the same appeal as...
Doesn't the protests in Iran right now, doesn't that kind of look like Care Bear Land espionage in a way? I mean, they obviously have a lot of Care Bear Land agents there. I mean, that's very obvious. And then it's very obvious that agents play a huge role in the modern protest scene. A huge role.
Iraq, because Iranians are far more rational people. Nonetheless, it's a concern. Also, any of these leftover munitions, will they get into Russia? Will they just go in the hands of terrorists? Or might they go to Ukraine to be used against Russia? Very crucial problem. This all leads the paranoid cell in a terrible situation. Obviously, this operation demonstrated that America can pull off some crazy feats. The Russians back in 20...
How do you guys think the U.S. disabled all the electronics at the compound? Because Trump made it seem like it was some kind of, 15 years ahead military weapon they had. And they probably do have, as they say, 15 years ahead of technology secretly in the U.S. military. There's some kind of like theory, you could probably figure it out by Googling it, where it's like the hypothesis where it's, whatever technology we receive, that's cutting edge tech, the military's 10, 15 years ahead of that. What do you guys think it was? I've heard, if I had to like postulate the ones I've heard, that the theories that kind of make sense to me would be like, okay, it was some type of like EMP or something like that, or some type of like jammer. I think it's possible it was a cyber attack, like they hacked Venezuelan SCADA systems or something like that. But I don't know. Like, what do you guys think? It seems definitely like, the feat is impressive, but also they definitely had some kind of inside intel into Maduro. Let's say you work, you're like you're one of the right hand guys for Maduro, let's say, right? And let's say you're taking a dump, and then as you're taking a dump, you get like a mysterious phone call or something, and you find out it's like, Trump, it's Pete Hegseth, whoever it is on the other side, right? And they're talking to you like, motherfucker, we got these are your GPS coordinates. How's your wife Shayla doing? How's little Nino Timothy? How's little Nina Kimberly? They know your kids' names, your wife names. Like, they're talking to you and they're like, all right, so basically, we're coming. You're not gonna stop us, but we can make things easy for you if you just tell us like this one little thing about where does Maduro like to where does he like to wash, what towel does he use to wash his balls? Give us that information, and then we'll let we'll let you go. We'll let you off easy, because we somehow need that information for our raid where none of our own guys will get touched. And so that's what I'm saying, is basically like Maduro probably had some people on the inside who sold him out as part of it. And when Trump gets on there, he's like, we have the best technology. Nobody has technology like us. He gets on there and starts talking like that. I mean, the reality is he probably did his own kind of espionage play on, a much smaller country with much less influence.
2022 tried to do this to Zelensky, and they all got massacred. Generally speaking, Russia is just a nation of utter humiliation. It's an embarrassment to the human race. They have been fighting this war for a long time. It's extraordinarily costly. And the risk, which might be overblown because it's difficult to extract the Venezuelan oil, but still, additional supplies means Russia has less ability to control prices. They're still having to make major discounts selling to the curry cells. As such, are they going to sue for peace? Because the status quo...
Sir! We need a Venezuelan oil, sir! Sir! We need Venezuelan oil!
Doesn't work. Or are they going to do something drastic? I believe they will try to go after Zelensky or make some major move. And when they did the Operation Spiderweb last year, you saw these Russophiles, most of whom describe that they are Orthodox Christian, salivating over a nuclear strike on the Ukrainians. Oh, this was a reckless and arrogant, provocative move. They deserve to be nuked. You see how these folks, again, do they live their religion? No. It's just about wanting to feel right, emotions, vibes. We've already mentioned that before. But Russia has to do something. They can't operate on the assumption that this rather torrid alliance of different nations will be enough to keep things going. And if nothing else, it's just psychological. But at the same junction, if the Ukrainians pull off another spider web, which they got close to, or if they even eliminate a couple of senior people around Putin, he'll go into extreme paranoia mode and all bets are off. But still, launching a nuke, are you willing to take that chance to save yourself, even though it's going to be so much blowback? I have a lot of admiration for Russian culture, but there's part of me that thinks they sort of deserve to collapse. Because you can go back to the twilight of the Russian Empire. If you read the accounts of how these senior figures in the aristocracy, the defense forces, the internal security bureaus, they were immune to reason. They didn't want to change anything. They were willing to sacrifice Russians en masse just for their own ego or for tradition. So yes, whatever comes afterwards will be disastrous, like if they're dominated in a Sino fashion or the curry cells invade the country.
Yeah, Alex Prince, I'm going to look at that.
Are not willing to
I know what you're talking about with
that's
Havana syndrome.
I don't support it, but it might be inevitable. Returning to Venezuela, remains to be seen how things will play out. Are we going to have an extended insurgency? I could see the narco traffickers doing something, but is the run-of-the-mill Venezuelan really supportive of the government, given how poor quality of life is? So that's going to determine, are they willing to give everything on some vague notion of sovereignty, or will they actually say, hey, we want a different direction? I suspect that is going to be the outcome at some level, and so we'll have to just stop and see. But all this incessant doomerism, oh, it's Iraq 2.0, just understand there's a crop of people that are right of center who they need to just be kind of removed from public life. They need to be removed from the internet. Like, mentally speaking, they cannot handle the stuff. They've been so mind-cucked by really the Care Bears, or their conception of what the Care Bears are, that they're not useful to even listen to. You have to put them on mute in some substantial fashion. Otherwise, they're going to burn down the entire system to feel a little bit warm.
I guess Goldberg's afraid of right of center people, apparently.
And so, literally about a month after
all I know about Havana syndrome is it's some thing where people don't know much about it, I don't think, but it's supposed to be some type of like sonic weapon or something that is possibly causing headaches and stuff of that nature. But we'll see maybe we'll find out more in this 3-minute clip.
Movie came out about that thing. I got a knock at my door, and it was representatives of the CIA and an aerospace company, unannounced. And they said, we want to talk to you. And they wanted my help with a number
What's going on, No Name? That's good to see you in chat,
military
man.
and diplomatic personnel who'd been, they claimed, harmed by things.
Oh man, Goldberg was just yapping about what was he yapping about? Like Maduro at the end there. Let me see.
They'd either heard stuff, etc. And long story short, the majority of the 100 or so people that I had privy to their medical...
Yeah, I mean, he was just yapping about like Maduro, like how does this affect like Russia, China. At the beginning, I dead ass forgot. Like, he spent 10 minutes yapping about something else in the beginning. He didn't even talk about Maduro until like the 10-minute mark. I dead ass don't even remember what he was talking about.
Records ended up being the first of the Havana syndrome patients. They'd heard things in their head, etc. But what they had done was they had shown me the data literally that day in my office. They brought out the MRIs, they brought out the X-rays, and the damage in the brain, etc. It was clear. I mean, it was not just data, it was evidence that something had happened. It wasn't somebody's story, it was evidence that was repeatable. And so that took us about 3 or 4 years to figure out what they were. And it was at about the time that actually the Havana events were occurring that we realized that all the symptoms of what it is that we were seeing in this group of patients were matching what it was that the Havana syndrome individuals had. So in a way that was good, because that meant that those 90 or so patients who matched, we could hand over to the national security people, and it became a real thing. And now there's like a DoD website that has anomalous health incidents where people can come forward and report the stuff that they've got, and here's the ways you can use the Veterans Administration to seek medical help. Whereas previously they'd been shooed away as, we don't want to hear about this.
What do they think it is?
It's an energy weapon of some kind, a microwave or other energy or gamma energy weapon. And that sounds crazy, except no one would admit or no one would deny that we have the capability to do it. It's basically...
Yeah, guys, I mean, I think this is like microwaves, all that stuff's real. Electromagnetic frequencies, just be careful with them. Don't, limit your exposure. I'm not saying you got to go full Chuck McGill, if you guys know what I'm talking about. But, for example, I like to use wired headphones whenever I can. I'm not saying I'll never ever use wireless headphones, but if it's not of an inconvenience to me, I would opt for the wired headphones. I don't necessarily need a whole bunch of Bluetooth electromagnetic frequencies floating around my noggin. So yeah, I definitely think like this Havana syndrome stuff, we're gonna finish this clip because it's pretty interesting.
If you take the front off your microwave and turn it on and put your face near it, you'll get burned. So this is just a way to direct the microwaves or sound waves
at specific individuals.
And do you think it was experimental, or
No. So these are targeted people with specific intention to get those
Absolutely.
people because they had some function that they wanted to.
They wanted to annoy. They wanted to get them out of the way.
Oh, because they were in Havana.
Because they were in Havana, and
Right.
but it's been used all over the world. You know, I still get emails from military personnel saying this and this and this happened to me. Here's my medical records, and so now I know they know that I'm a safe place to approach, because then I know where to send them on the inside. But what was interesting was that once we had set that aside, and I've advised the Senate Intelligence Committee, and I've advised them, the House, on things. I wrote a white paper for them years ago on what I thought needed to be done. But what was interesting were the remaining 10 people who had, who didn't have Havana syndrome, but had a series of other problems. And several of them had said that part of their problem was initiated because they'd come in contact with what they had claimed to be a UFO.
Ooh, interesting. That was a good recommendation, Alex Prince. But yeah, that's also that's something very real we gotta think about, is the unseen weapons and stuff like that. I mean, we saw that thing where they've used sonic weapons to clear out protests. Let's see, sound weapon clears protest. Let me see if I can find that clip. Serbia. Yeah, this was last year. They just clear out like cattle. I don't know if this is true. Can this do So these things, I never understood this. People are like, "Oh, bro, whales are so loud under the water. They can ping you with their echolocation, and it can fry your eardrums." And I know that they say that about like nuclear subs too. Like if a nuclear sub is trying to like radar ping you, and it can like fry your little shit. Like I don't know how true that is, but they're loud, you know. But the theory is they're not screaming, you know, they're just kind of mumbling, and if they really wanted to end your shit and like yell at your shit, they could like bust your eardrums. I don't know how true that is, but interesting. I kind of want to see this Lungs of Faith video. What's up, Western? Yeah, this guy Lungs of Faith, man. I mean, he's been putting out like, I mean, he's just good about getting virality, honestly, and his stuff's been coming out. It's just, I guess he just posted one about tech billionaires we could watch, but I honestly wanted to watch this one about the F-oids. And then this is like the uglification of society, probably. I saw this one. This one was Kino. It was just like a well-produced video. Let's do this one, I guess.
My body counts 11, and
Oh my
no,
God,
it doesn't
I-
matter unless it's like
I'm gonna like
excessively
fast.
high.
Okay, I can't.
can't boil water without a tutorial, and obsesses over her degree,
I'm gonna
likes
skip
an
through all the
Instagram
F-word
cloud
clips,
instead
guys,
of
'cause I
building a
can't even
home.
do it.
Yet the same woman demands a guy who's 6 foot tall, earns 6 figures, and still begs for a chance at her attention on dating apps.
My man's gotta be above 6'2".
Cast and book is screaming at men, fix your frame, lift heavier, stack cash, become the prize. But where's the equivalent for women?
Ultimately, I think the whole political system is just based around women never being accountable for any of their choices.
This isn't random. Hookup culture, porn, social media, and a century-old social engineering experiment have rewired women to chase infinite validation, and it's nuking birth rates and making modern dating feel hopeless. And the data tells us that if we don't do something about it now, this could be the end of our civilization. But the system has weak points. There are incentives nobody talks about, and once you see them, the whole spell breaks. That's why in this video, we're ripping the mask off the biggest dating scam of our time, exposing the incentives that created this mess, the architects who built it, and the dark side of the red pill.
The architects who built it. Is he gonna... Hugh Hefner. I wonder... Hugh Hefner might be Jay. I wouldn't be too surprised.
That
I'm
nobody's
do the
willing
early
to talk
life.
about. This is why. The reality is that the disproportionate shift in female to male value can be explained with a simple economic analogy: inflation. When a currency gets inflated, the price tags go up, but the underlying value doesn't. Sometimes it even flips. You pay more for less, and basics suddenly cost premium.
I don't
now
think
apply
so.
that to
I don't think
dating and
he's
marriage.
gay.
We call this hoflation. Not because women are the enemy, far from it, but because the modern environment has warped the market for everyone, and we'll get to why exactly I think that is in a bit. It's much more sinister than you think. Expectations have been inflated. Standards have been inflated. What I deserve has been inflated, but the virtues that actually make marriage work haven't been cultivated at the same pace.
I mean, to say it succinctly, we live in a generation where guys have been browbeaten about, like, hey, this is how you have to treat women, but no one wants to teach a woman like, hey, this is how you should treat a man, you know. So, but I promise you, it's literally like guys are being browbeaten about, like, oh, treat her nice, bro, treat her nice, just supplicate, bro.
Issue is incentives. Many women are trained subtly but constantly to see traditional values as oppressive or beneath them, and to chase status signals instead. Credentials, clout, vanity, attention, and options. When a whole culture treats sex like a currency, it's no surprise that women feel more desirable than ever, while becoming less prepared for making the home and serving their husband. This isn't something I'm making up. This is data. Using nationally representative NSFG data, among women ages 20 to 24, about 29% reported having slept with.
I guess the whole thing I hate about the hoflation thing is a guy like me who if I'm going to get laid, I kind of want to do it like my way, which means, you know, there's going to be more trial and error now. I'm probably going to get a girl who's not as hot. Versus, like, if I lived in the 90s, I think I'd have a lot more success, and I think I'd have better looking women who don't use as much caked up makeup. If you guys look up actually the makeup in the 90s, it's more about like maintaining a natural look while still having like a thin layer of like foundation on, and like just like very like bare minimum use of makeup. But I mean, today it's literally about like face frauding your contours and stuff with like super cakey makeup from like Ulta Beauty and stuff like that, like, and you know, Sephora and all that crap.
2 to 4 men, 23.4% reported 5 to 9, and about 13.1% reported 10 plus. A nasty 1% also reported 40 plus partners. Fast forward to 2025 and the data's even more bleak. The US fertility rate hit 1.6 children per woman in 2021, way below the 2.1 replacement level, and it's dropped by 22% since 2000.
I guess the annoying thing about like when you're in this community and you watch videos like this is it's like, isn't it a lot of this is like, this is just like BP 101 information, and it's like, I'm Lungs of Faith. Here's my 300,000 viewed YouTube video that came out last week, and I'm telling you information that you heard about years ago, bucko. Like, I don't know.
2007. By 2024, births to married women averaged just 1.7 children per
He's
couple.
got to reach the
Meanwhile,
normies.
a record
That's why
1
he has
in
to
3
say what
young
he has to
adults
say.
ages 25 to 34 will never marry, with only 20% of 25-year-old women and 23% of men ever tying the knot. That is the lowest we've ever seen in history.
Yeah, I mean, guys, like, we can't, let's, chat, we're not getting married. We're not getting married, are we? Chat. Let me know. Like I've said, I mean, maybe a covenant marriage if anything, but even, you know, you gotta, you know, if I'm talking to anyone about marriage, I'm talking to my lawyer before I talk to my wife, man, or my fiance.
But why? Dating apps and social media amplify hypergamy, women chasing the top 10% of men, while the economic pressures make single life safer. 2025 Atlantic Peace calls it America's marriage material shortage. Adults are 20 to 30% less likely to partner up than in the 90s. And here's where the hoflation kicks in. The average guy is getting hammered with correction non-stop. Fix your habits, fix your body, fix your bank account, fix your confidence, fix your game, fix your resume, fix your trauma, clean your room, stand up.
This is why I love this Lungs of Faith guy. And this isn't his first video where he's talked about this, where it's like, hey, guys, and this is happening, where it's like guys are being browbeaten with this self-improvement narrative, this whole crimson capsule narrative of like, oh, bro, you just need to watch an old man's advice on YouTube that came out 12 years ago with 31 million views. And this old man, he will tell you what you need to know, bro. And, like, you know, all this, like, these narratives of, like, you can improve and all that. But it's like no one's telling literally the whole other side in a situation where it takes two sides to tango. Nobody is telling the other side any modicum of the same expectation.
Straight, become dangerous, become disciplined, and honestly, a lot of that message has been a net positive. It's produced better men. But why is almost none of that energy also aimed at women? Because we built an economy where female validation is profitable and female correction is radioactive. The market doesn't reward telling women repent and mature and get serious, learn the skills that build a home, and stop living for attention. No, that's the fastest way to go bankrupt. It rewards telling them you're perfect as you are, never change, and your standards are empowerment, and any critique is hatred. Take this example. Recently, this comedian was humiliated in front of the entire world for his wife Jasleen making content that is beyond reprehensible for any woman, let alone a married one.
Sometimes I get so painfully nostalgic for college. So for context, I went to college from 2011 to 2016. I was popping my and living my best life in these white boy frat houses, and I had a rock.
I remember I don't know why I was thinking about this today, but there was this girl, totally my type. I worked with her at a back when I had the office job in Austin, and totally my type, like very attractive, like Asian American, like ABG kind of girl. You know, it was obvious she put a lot of work into like her ass and stuff like that, and she seemed really into me. But the thing that kept me like jumping on her, like I kept like a foot's distance, and I kind of like studied her my time while I was there. And the only thing keeping me from jumping at her right away was I found out pretty quickly that she worked as a bottle girl on the weekends. And I was like, ooh, it's like a deal breaker for me to really pursue that how I'd like. But I think looking back, I probably would have done it though, because Rehab Room talks about like just date the baddie, bro. Like you don't really think about like, because it's like the good girl is kind of gonna have her own 3 or 4 tendencies in a way anyway. So it's like in this generation, just date the baddie. Like if she's going for you, you should go for her, kind of thing. And I wish I kind of knew that now, but at the same time, why I wanted to bring this up was this is such a disgusting story. I'm just sitting there at work one time, and you know, I've gotten to know her a lot at this point. We've even like smoked together a little bit, just like in group settings. So we've hung out outside of work a decent amount at this point, right? Just in group settings, nothing like crazy, you know. But she came up to me at work one time. It's like, oh, I need like guy advice or whatever. She's talking about like, yeah, I've been hooking up with this like guy in my apartment complex, and it's because he's like a 30-year-old guy. You know, I think both of us were like 25 at the time. He's like, yeah, he's like 30, and like he sent me this text. She showed me the text, and the guy was basically saying like, oh, like, where do you think this is going? do you see something in this? Like, so basically the guys, you know, and it's kind of like a beautiful thing in a way, is the guys kind of like saying like, hey, I would like to, you know, we've been smashing casually and I would like to smash seriously, basically. And I think that's, you know, I've talked about that before, where that's kind of like a guy willing to kind of like, especially in clown world, like a guy willing to take a girl seriously. Like, girls will never respect like how chivalrous, I guess, that is, right? Like, they'll never respect that. But yeah, she was like, OMG, like, you know, like this 30-year-old, like, he's kind of being weird, like, you know, like, I don't know, like she like lost a lot of attraction for him. It's pretty obvious. But yeah, I was just really bringing that up to show you guys, like, this is like the 304s of today, where it's like, they'll be like, OMG, I should ask my guy coworker for advice here about like this guy who's been like smashing me, and like now he wants to take me seriously. It's just, yeah, it's so effed up, man. And that's sad too, I think, where it's like, if I want to sleep with a girl who actually has like facial physiognomy that I like, and you know, a body type that I like, and, you know, a nice fat ass that, you know, bounces, like you could drop like a coin on and you can like see the reverberations off of it. Like, if I want that, it's like I have to deal with so much BS in this generation. It's like, okay, well, she's probably a OF creator, and she's probably a bottle girl, and she's so there's no like, but then at the same time, it's like, okay, let's take what Broomstick wants out of the equation entirely, and let's say that Broomstick just wants, you know, a nice mom, like a nice mom for his kids, a good girl, and just a decent person. And facial physiognomy, maybe it matters like way less, and definitely having like an ass and all that superficial stuff, like, let's take all that stuff out, right? Well, the problem is, even if you pull the girl on those kind of metrics, she probably has a past too, and she probably has, you know, she probably wasn't so much of a good girl anyway. And so I get, you know, that's my vent.
Roster of guys that I would rotate.
This is not a two-way street. This is a one-way street. His money is our money.
Bro, get that
co-host husband.
Skip
Would
that
y'all
shit,
ever
bro.
have an orgy together with your husband?
Disgusting.
Yeah,
Disgusting,
this
bro.
couple,
Like, disgusting.
On couples and young women, she publicly called them all incels and red pillars. So you end up with a one-sided self-improvement pipeline where criticizing women is instantly labeled as misogyny and actual misandry.
I am 6'2". I currently I'm a little overweight. I'm probably like 16% body fat right now. I'm a little pudgy. I like to keep well below 15, but I'm probably running a little high right now after the holidays. So I'm a little bit over 200 right now. I'm like 202 right now. So ideally, if I was on top of my gym and stuff, I'd probably be like a 195 right now, or like a 190.
Hatred of men is brushed off as putting stubborn men in their place, but it only gets more hideous from here, because contrary to popular belief, things don't always improve in so-called Christian circles.
The status quo, feminists ask for it, you're gonna get equality. You ask for equality,
that
you get
wasn't original
equality.
Feminism, though.
No, well, feminism has always been a man-hating ideology, but that's another conversation.
That's not true either.
And I really wish that wasn't the case. But popular voices in church and online often tell men to ignore a woman's past entirely.
I think that Christianity is inundated with feminist ideology. You also see tons of workers also who use Christianity as a shield from criticism rather than coming to the religion and the faith itself from a form of humility.
If any of these women were actually serious, I think we would see it by their fruits and probably never see them again on social media. Yet that's not what we see. The proof is in the pudding. In recent years, there's been a wave of many ex-porn stars suddenly becoming Christian, which is great, but yet their outward appearance, content, and actions often reflect very little evidence of real conversion. Young women who idolize these influencers see this and conclude that it's okay to cling to their old ways while claiming the label Christian for social benefits.
She's an amazing woman. She has a soul and a heart for the Lord.
Single Christian men feel this deeply. These women often seem to show up at church
Erica
only when
Kirk
it's
is so
advantageous to land a traditional faithful man without the hard work of prayer.
It's very sad what happened to Charlie, man. I like, if you are not like it, everyone in this chat should take this deal where if some genie came up to you and was like, I'll take Erica Kirk out of the media forever and resurrect Charlie, or you can have things as they are now. Everyone takes that deal, right? Everyone brings Charlie back, right? I mean, surely, right?
Fitness and discipline, and lifestyle change that the men have already invested in. They expect full acceptance and the benefits of covenant love, but bristle at any call to accountability. The irony runs deep because society paints men as stubborn and women as flexible, yet survey after survey shows the exact opposite. Men are more likely to change jobs, relocate, or alter habits when faced with criticism or new information. Women, constantly told, "You're enough as you are," often react far more negatively to any critique. Advertisers have figured this out decades ago because the most profitable message is simple: validate women endlessly, guilt trip men relentlessly. She deserves everything and he's never doing enough. That loop sells products, manipulates desires, and quietly destroys homes. When affirmation becomes a business model, truth becomes the enemy, and feminism's vicious cycle rolls on unchecked. Now, the hopeful and beautiful thing is that many see through this and are beginning to wake up and rightly turn to the traditional Christian life with God at the very center. But some who try end up taking a disastrous detour that ends up doing more harm than good. The trad wife movement is the perfect example of what happens when you try to baptize an evil ideology like feminism. It's proof that the internet can take something real, good, and ancient and then turn it into a costume you can monetize. Because at the center of the trad wife pitch is a critique. Modern womanhood has been flattened into careerism, attention-seeking, sexual liberation, and performative independence. Fine, that critique has actual teeth and holds a lot of weight, and I would agree, and probably all of you watching would agree. A home matters, children matter a lot, and a woman who can build a peaceful household is more valuable than the entire corporate HR department. But then you start to look closer and the whole brand starts eating itself, and it gets even worse when they start lecturing. But before we dive into these insane trad wife takes, I just wanted to say that it's really difficult to find sponsors from and Flapjack until you post your topics. Back to the plot.
I don't know who needs to hear this, but if your man asks you to not dress half naked or post bikini thirst traps,
okay, we're skipping.
Don't get me wrong, their words sound sweeter than some Aunt Jemimas on a flapjack until you start looking a little bit
it's
further.
Just, if I see a F-oid, bro, I have to skip, bro. Like, come on, bro. Like you know, she's just gonna say some entitled, nothing of value, like thing about like feminine energy, my man, blah blah blah. Like, there's nothing of value there. I'm skipping all that stuff.
It's like these women just don't understand the contradiction of criticizing women who seek attention by.
Like, I get why he has to put it in the video, because it's like he has to show the blue capsulars and the normies, like, this is how bad it is right now. This is a clip. Like, and I've seen too many of those at this point.
Well, seeking attention on social media. Half these trad wife accounts are just modesty cosplay. It's look how private and hidden I am, filmed in 4K with ring lights and 45 takes. These girls are out here telling women to log off and to stop chasing male attention while she's got sponsored linen dresses and an affiliate link for the bonnet. It's easy to forget on social media that the virtue of modesty doesn't only encompass your sexuality, but also seeking unnecessary attention and vainglory. One of the greatest examples of this was when Candace Owens...
Like, one of the things you could say is, you know, a guy like DBDR, he's not the most intelligent guy, he's not the most capable guy, but he's never grifted his audience, you know, and stuff like that. So, you know, there's something of value there, but yeah, I mean, he's making the very astute point, our gentleman here in the Lungs of Faith video, that it's like these trad wife influencers, it's a very obvious grift, you know, especially when they're trying to sell stuff. And
got shut down on Jubilee by some leftist feminists who picked up on this.
When you sit here and you...
Western says, this kid just strikes me as a TP USA Gerby. Yeah, I totally agree, man. We might have to react to some of that aesthetics waiting guy. I know, Western, you mentioned that he's like a more truly dark capsuled Gerby. We're just going through all the variants of Gerby here, man. We got TPUSA Gerby, then we got to watch the dark capsule Gerby.
You'll be more fulfilled doing this than spend all your time doing that. We would love for you to leave the public eye and go focus on what makes you fulfilled. Okay.
While most of us don't agree with this woman's whole worldview, this left...
Gosh, dude, I'm sorry, but I think Candace, like, bruh, she's so fine, bro. Like, I remember Nick had this clip that went kind of viral where he was talking about, like, I don't really like going to the gym. I don't really like having a personal trainer. Can I just get a personal trainer who looks like Candace Owens? Can Candace Owens just be my personal trainer? You just have like a a super high estrogen black woman with like amazing facial physiognomy training you.
Leftist woman is right to point out the blaring contradiction. Tradition is supposed to be rooted in hiddenness, sacrifice, and reality. These trad e-girls think that they can be the exception to the rule, but honestly it just makes the Christian position look weak by hypocrisy.
Somebody tells me I belong in the kitchen. You're right, I do. I love it here. Let's make the kitchen great again.
Bro, if you're falling for this grift, like room temp IQ, man, like, it's just these guys where it's like they have maybe enough to recognize where it's like, okay, my world doesn't exist, you know. I saw someone made the point about like being like a Gen Z guy, being a millennial guy, whatever. It's like showing up to a party and then being handed a broom and being told to clean up. And so I get the whole thing about like, okay, like, you know, this world wasn't made for me. But then really this is what you're going to do, is you're going to spend your time going through TikToks of stuff like this, of like, OMG, let's make the kitchen great again.
It's so much fun, you know? Get a husband, get pregnant, make some...
Jay Cranston, I agree. I think, like, I wouldn't be into Candace herself, but I would agree that I think she's attractive in terms of like facial physiognomy, but yeah, when it comes to like black women, man, I need someone with more of an ass than Candace, not gonna lie, respectfully. I think that's where like black women really shine. I think they have like amazing body genetics. In general, they have like, you know, ass genetics and stuff like that like no other race can match, really.
Oh my gosh, like, there's so much joy. No one understands me. No one gets it. Okay. Honey, I made muffins.
Well, what do we have here? Look at all these guys cuck-maxing in the comment section. I'm gonna have to start a wall of shame, maybe on my Instagram, because this is getting ridiculous. Let's be real, would she still be making videos if thousands of men weren't drooling over her content? It's the moment that these girls realize that the only reason guys pay attention to them is because they're pretty, not because anyone actually cares about their content. A 2025 Substack expose nailed it. Women like Erica Kirk build empires preaching stay-at-home life, but their bosses raking in 6 to 7 figures from sponsored content. Without feminism, they couldn't do it. And this humiliating exchange between Andrew Wilson...
That's a great point, Jay Cranston. If you see like black cheerleaders at like D1 schools or stuff, they're normally very attractive because, you know, they have some of those sister genetics that, you know, maybe some of us, what do you want to call us? Like, I mean, we're deviants. We're dastardly guys, you know, we're race mixing guys, whatever. We're more horny. I don't know, hornballs. Yeah, these girls at like these D1 schools, you know, they come from families with like money and stuff. So they're normally like very attractive, you know. They're in good shape, obviously, if they're like cheerleaders. Yeah. So.
And in one of these Christian conservative...
I'm not talking about Sharquisha, not talking about LaFonda, not talking about Rashonda. I'm talking about, you know, talking about Courtney. You know, Courtney.
Covert feminists makes this crystal clear.
And as a woman, I want a strong man who is a protector and a provider that will go to war if need be, that will protect me.
Oh my God.
Grew up with my... They're like, oh, great, that's a manly man. So at some point, I think we'll go back to maybe meeting in the middle here.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just more feminist nonsense, ultimately. Right. And the covert feminism in society is big, especially on the conservative side. So here's what happens, right? Women need to have feminine virtues for men to be pursuing.
You see how Tommy Lauren has to try to like laugh off what Andrew's saying here because he's right. And so that's like the only in face of like the dissemination of totally sound counter logic, like that's one of the only defenses they have, is to just like act like, and then just kind of like fiend, you know, body language of a fake superiority complex or something.
And the
like, watch your face
feminism
here.
in society is big, especially on the conservative side. So here's what happens, right? Women need to have feminine virtues for men to be pursuing masculine virtues. For you to say things like, what I want is for men to protect me and I want men to make money. Well, that's great. What that ends up doing is it gives you a set of privilege in society. What do men get? What do men get for doing that for you? What are we getting from women for doing that? Are we getting chaste virgins on our wedding night? No, we're not getting chaste virgins on our wedding night.
Did it do the meme?
Women chaste virgins on our wedding night? No, we're not getting chaste virgins on our wedding night. Are we getting women of great virtue? No, we're not getting women of great virtue. The idea of courtly love is supposed to be done for women of great virtue. Where are they? Well, they're nowhere. When female conservative influencers say this, it's actually a form of covert feminism.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, it's complete slop, right? Like, if you're actually gonna sit down and watch like a 20-minute Crucible video every day featuring Andrew Wilson, and you're gonna spend 20 minutes of your time doing that every day, I mean, yeah, you're taking the slop pill at that point, that's for sure. And this whole like debate, just who's the master debator, bro? Like, that whole culture is really cringe. He's Kirk Sr. Yeah, I like that. That's a good point, Western. He's willing to debate anyone, and maybe he's more like the father of Charlie Kirk, who's, you know, a bit more boomer age. He can kind of like tell it how it is a bit more than Charlie could. Whereas Charlie just had to be like, oh, well, the data says, and respectfully my point, you know.
They're saying, I want privilege in society, but what is it women are giving to men to get it? What?
These so-called traditional conservative Christian women come out on television in a face full of makeup and demand traditional values from a man, while wanting to keep modern values for themselves whenever it feels convenient. The contradictions only—
And I think the whole obvious thing with Tomi Lahren is when she was the super hot, like, 25-year-old on Fox News who had her own, like, segment, you didn't hear her talk about like dating problems or stuff, because, you know, she was probably having her fun. She probably had her own timeline in her head about like, well, you know, I don't necessarily have to find Mr. Right now and blah, blah, blah. And then, I mean, we fast forwarded and now here she is on Piers Morgan getting in a scuffle with the master debater, stepdaddy Andrew from the Crucible. And, you know, she's getting her shit rocked, kind of getting like put in her place, because she like now wants to all of a sudden tell men what to do, and it's just like, no, like no, like maybe if you had something to offer, like, you know, your hottest version of yourself, maybe we could play ball, but you don't have that to offer anymore. So
start getting worse and worse when you look at what the actual—
I'm just pointing out, I think that's where a lot of the male frustration here is coming from, where it's like, you're not in no position to make demands. You're no longer like the hottest version of yourself. I like, you know, we want to talk about deal making, the art of the deal. There has to be give and take, right?
Catholic Church teaches. The early Christian saints did not hold back. St. John Chrysostom says, you can carry your purse full of the tools of sorcery, which he's referring to makeup. When you come out painted like that, even if you do not commit adultery, you have already committed adultery in your heart, because you made all the men who saw you burn with lust. Homily on Matthew 73:3. A woman who paints her face is worse than a prostitute. The prostitute at least sins with her body. This one sins with her appearance and drags thousands into sin with her. And another one, why do you deck yourself out like a whore going to a brothel? Tell me, if you were captive in chains, would you adorn yourself? No. So then why do you adorn yourself when you are captive to the devil? This so-called tradwife movement is literally the inversion of the Christian order, where the man is in the public domain battling evil, involved in debate and politics, and woman is in private, protecting her delicate feminine heart and loving and nurturing her household. If you want to know why everything feels rigged, why marriage is collapsing, why women act like Instagram porn stars and still demand a ring, you have to stop treating this like some random modern glitch. Because it's not. This entire system was built on purpose, brick by brick, over 100 years ago, and it wants you to be mad at women. It wants you to direct your hatred at the young girls today who are raised to be like this, because it takes away the attention from the institutions, the financiers, and the eugenic agenda that's really at hand. There's a reason that the white ethno-European lapsed Catholic women are the ones who are least likely to reproduce in 2025. So let's rip the pretty wallpaper off and look at the foundation. Most people think that the rot started with Tinder or OnlyFans. Wrong. It started...
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this guy, I mean, look at the timestamp here. He's feminist social engineering. So he's probably going to be talking about, like, you know, the Care Bear engineering maybe a little bit. He's maybe going to talk about George Soros money and how that's kind of helping engineer all this. But I think he said something earlier about, like, oh, once you learn this, you don't have to blame the women, bro. Don't blame the women, bro. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, because I get where he's coming from, and he's mostly right. I'll say that. But I wouldn't agree with this standpoint where it's like, oh, they were just children, they were just naive. Like, you know, have forgiveness, bro. We're gonna restore patriarchy and we're gonna recover the bad situation. Just have forgiveness, bro. Like, no, I don't think they were fully naive. I even think they had a component in it. I think for the most part, yes, like there probably were people who were just totally brainwashed, but I think there's also a good subset of people who kind of knew what was going on, but they, you know, saw how they were being favored from things like DEI, saw how, you know, Me Too maybe got them a little bit more, like, made people more, like, cautious around them, and they kind of maybe got, like, off on that a bit. They liked that power trip that kind of, like, caused them. They liked people being in fear of being called sexist. Like, they liked that stuff. And so I think they kind of, like, kept their mouths shut, you know what I'm saying? Like, as all this stuff was happening.
With the second they sold women's
So no, I don't really buy that whole they're not at fault narrative.
As a Trojan horse for sexual anarchy. The heroes they put on the posters, the suffragettes everyone worships today. A huge chunk of them, and especially the loud male allies riding their coattails, weren't fighting for voting rights. They were fighting to tear down the last walls around sex, marriage, and family, and so the chaos we live in now could be born. Victoria Woodhull, the first boss babe to run for president in 1872, openly preached free love, said marriage was slavery, and ran a newspaper with her sister bragging about their sexual encounters and affairs. And then take George Bernard Shaw. As a famous playwright and open Fabian socialist, he openly called for state-run breeding farms and said marriage was legalized prostitution, and argued that women should be free to have children with whichever men they found most fit, even if that includes more than a few. The first step towards a new eugenic morality is to give women the same sexual freedom as men. Now it only gets worse from here. H.G. Wells, the sci-fi writer and another Fabian socialist, was a serial adulterer who bragged about sleeping with hundreds of women, pushed free love as the future, wrote novels glorifying it, and said suffrage was only useful because it would destroy the family unit and make casual sex socially acceptable. That's the real origin story they don't teach you in school, and why you're subscribing to my channel. Women's voting rights got hijacked on day one by sexual anarchists who wanted the leash off. Fast forward to the 20th century scientists. If you were hoping things get better, they don't. Bring Alfred Kinsey claimed 10-year-olds could orgasm. You can find this in table 34 of his own report. Said jealousy and monogamy were cultural deformities. He famously,
I mean, the whole Kinsey stuff, I've actually looked into Kinsey pretty good amount. When I was in academia, they had us, like, read a good amount of Kinsey and stuff. And something is fishy there. There's some kind of agenda behind Kinsey. But I do kind of, like, I will say that I do think people are kind of pervs. You know what I'm saying? Like, people are kind of sexually deviant. Like, and I think he's not wrong about that. When like left to our devices or whatever you might call it, but there's a lot of, like, weird stuff behind Kinsey. So, you know, it's a very, like, glass half full, glass half empty kind of take, I guess.
claim that the only unnatural sexual act is the one that cannot be performed. He would have made for a great episode of EDP Watch. Yet this guy got medals, university buildings, and writings turned into required college reading. After Sexual Behavior in the Human Male dropped in 1948, it sold 200,000 copies in 2 months and blew up into a national event. PBS reviews and professional circles pushed it as something educators and policymakers should read. One contemporary review even framed it as required reading for a broad list of professional gatekeepers: physicians, educators, psychologists, legislators, and judges, all of the most influential aspects of society. But its popularity wasn't an accident at all. This Space Cowboys book was propelled by the massive funding from Rockefeller Foundation, which provided the primary financial backing for his research through the National Research Council's Committee for Research in Problems of Sex. What a tongue twister. Grants started small, $1,600 in that time's money in 1941, but ramped up significantly, reaching $40,000 annually by 1947. That's equivalent to about $600,000 to $1 million today.
Part of the whole thing with like collegiate funding like that is it's like, okay, obviously the guy 40x'd his university funding there, as he, this TPUSA Gerby pointed out. But think about this, right? Say you're a new university professor, you're scraping pennies together to pay rent and eat food and all that, and you work in a lab 12 plus hours a day, and you just got funding to basically scrape your pennies together. Now, when you find your findings for that research, do you want to report good findings that you think would show the people who are funding you the result they're kind of looking for? Or do you think you'd kind of be biased towards pulling the findings that are the truth? Do you think you'd truly be biased towards the truth and you'd be willing to show the true result regardless of whatever it might, your stakeholders and the people who fund you might think? Are you going to show them the truth, or are you going to show them what they want to see?
And that's not to count the dozens and dozens of other similar studies that the Rockefellers were funding at the time. At its peak, this made up a substantial portion of the committee's budget, enabling Kinsey to hire assistants, expand interviews, and publish the book. But at this time, a lot of this stuff still floated in ideas. And
there's a movie where Liam Neeson plays Alfred Kinsey, and it's actually low-key kind of good. If you guys just want like some Hollywood Care Bear slop to watch.
Academia, but someone had to popularize it. But the question was who? Or Hugh.
I mean, when I say good, it's like mids, it's like good mids.
For Hugh Hefner, Playboy wasn't a side hustle. It was a manifesto. It was a way to take all of these perverted ideas and begin to mold society into their agenda. One that hated the Catholic Church and the teachings of Christ and sought to blot it out from the earth. Hefner said in 19...
Part of the other thing, too, is Hefner had a cheating wife. I think he was doing the whole... my wife life, and then I think his wife slimed him out, and I think he just went full degeneracy pill afterwards.
65 that the sexual revolution is the end of Puritanism and the beginning of pleasure as a way of life. Marriage as we know it will disappear.
Honestly,
Hugh Hefner didn't just sell...
These Playboy bunnies honestly look better than a lot of girls today. I mean, they're using less makeup even.
Nude photos. He sold a lifestyle that made pornography feel sophisticated and normal. At its peak, Playboy wasn't a niche product. It had over 7 million readers in the 1970s. And it wasn't a broke rebel Zion either. A 1971 timepiece on Playboy going public reported that the corporation had $132 million in revenue the prior year, with $9.2 million net income, and that the magazine accounted for more than half of that revenue. That's the money trail. Normalize the product, scale it through mainstream distribution, and then pretend that it's just an accident and that it's just entertainment and that the people just like it. What are you gonna do? It's just the people just like it, I'm just walking in. And later come all the movies and film industries, which I've covered relentlessly in my video, The Biggest Lie That We Ever Bought, which is all about feminism and explains this in much more detail, but you end up having a movie called The Pawnbroker that changes the Hays Code and basically normalizes porn. And once it's normalized, it does two things at the same time. It feminizes and trains men to relate like consumers, which are always comparing and always shopping and always restless and always looking for their next fix, and it pressures women to compete in an attention market where the winning strategy is to increasingly perform sexuality and to increase...
I will say this, like, the girls Broomstick goes on dates with and stuff, like they are, I mean, I don't know how else to say this, they're directly competing with Korn. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, there's something to be said about that, but also at the same point, like, you are the real life woman, you should have like a massive advantage, right? Like, surely, you know what I'm saying? Because the real thing is, you know, way better than a screen, but yet here we are, and just the amount of like effort and the amount of options that, you know, any normal guy has, it's almost like better to just go to the screen. Really weird, man. We're in this position for real. Yeah, like, because it's like the girls that the normal guy has to deal with, let's be honest, they're probably X amount of pounds overweight or yada yada, right? Maybe they don't have the best facial physiognomy and all that. Wouldn't maybe a guy rather just go to his Korn at that point? I don't know.
Dress less modestly and to increasingly become more and more of a hoe, even if they'd never call it that. A peer-reviewed longitudinal paper in the Journal of Sex Research examined pornography use and divorce over time. The American Sociological Association summarized the same core findings plainly. Beginning pornography use was associated with a higher probability of divorce. Coverage of the research described it even more starkly. Married people who started watching porn were about twice as likely to divorce in subsequent years in that analysis. But Hefner wasn't alone in pushing this agenda. His Playboy empire built itself on the foundation laid by Margaret Sanger, the founder of what became Planned Parenthood. Sanger called marriage legalized prostitution and birth control.
Yeah, I agree, Western. I'm assuming you're talking about Kinsey. Western writes, he's not entirely wrong, just the wrong reaction to his findings. Should be looking to curtail that behavior, not encourage it. That's a great point. I think yeah, also, it's not just about like, yeah, we shouldn't encourage that behavior. We should say, okay, this is a truth about like the dark, deepest desires of the human psyche, but what outlets can we provide in a healthy society to kind of like cope with that fact that we are all beasts, and, you know, women are hypergamous and women want to get, you know, cracked, and then guys want to crack everything, you know, like, how do we cope? And that's not really what Kinsey did. He just kind of like explored more and more extremes beyond that. So that's a good point, for real.
The pivot of civilization so women could sleep around without consequences. Sanger's writings and speeches openly pushed for quote-unquote free love and selective breeding, arguing that unchecked reproduction amongst the unfit, including the poor, disabled, and Catholic, threatened progress.
Guys, I'm gonna call it. I think I'm gonna skip around. I'm gonna skip this Korn part. I'm gonna skip this male stuff.
Hits men even harder, and the fallout is brutal. Look at the numbers. In 2023 to 2020, about 8,000 men lost sexual revolution. Red pill. Guys like Andrew Tate, Rollo Tomasi, Fresh and Fit Pods, and all these online gurus who promise
Crimson
to wake
Castle
you up.
scam.
But do they
We know
really
this.
deliver? Or does everything they preach end up in a logical contradiction?
Man of God! Open it, man of God!
Man of God.
Man of God,
Man of God. I'm sorry she said that, Jesus. Don't listen to her.
Where's the holy water?
Here's the thing. They get the diagnosis mostly right, and I can say that as a Catholic from my point of view. They nail the symptoms: the hypergamy on steroids, hoflation, women inflated with options and expectations while virtues crash, a culture that trashes traditional roles and leaves men holding the bag. They point at feminism, hookup apps, the sexual revolution, all the stuff we've been talking about today, and say this is why you're losing. And they're right. Millions of guys swallow it because it feels true. It explains the pain. It provides a villain and something to point at. And for a minute
I know I've said this before, but I'm always going to be grateful for Tate, because he kind of like really he like punched the Overton window in its fucking mouth, dude. And then the other thing he did, for me at least, like on a personal level, was, you know, I had like a really bad breakup at that time, and I remember, you know, I just straight up got dumped out in the blue. Like, it was my first time having any kind of experience like that. And I remember him talking about like depression in particular, And you know, I've always kind of been battling with it in like college. You know, because you know, if you're not, it's obvious why I was probably battling with depression in college, right? You're not cracking girls regularly. You're not, you know, doing as well in your classes as you'd like. You're not. There's infinite reasons, right? Infinite reasons. I think, you know, not like I ever had like a good job lined up, and you know, you can go in the whole thing about like, oh, why didn't Broomstick have a good job lined up? Well, probably, you know, DEI, blah blah blah. You know, go into it, right? But so okay, I'm kind of depressed in college, and then get out of college, get dumped, also getting kind of depressed. 2022, boom, here comes this rise of this guy Andrew Tate. And I remember he said this one thing where it's like, depression, it's not real. Why would you believe in something that takes power from you? And like, I know that sounds like really dumb, but like that really just like hit a switch in me where I like totally just kind of like reprogram my brain where it's like, at the very least, I'm gonna be like, my best support system is myself. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, the only person I'm ever gonna have is myself. So it's like, I'm gonna be a little bit more self-compassionate. I'm not gonna hate myself. I'm not even gonna really see depression as something that like holds me back. I'm not even gonna see it as something I have or something. I'm not gonna identify with it. And ever since then, I stopped identifying with it, and it was like releasing a mental shackle. And I know that sounds really stupid, but you know, it's like some philosophy things will work for some people and they won't.
Feels empowering. And then comes the prescription. And the solution is just sleep around and never commit and treat these women like options in your personal attention economy, because you're not going to fix the sexual revolution. Might as well just give up and have as much fun as you can. In other words, embrace the exact promiscuity that feminism sold to women. It's the ultimate contradiction. Like, if Hugh Hefner saw Andrew Tate and all these red pill guys, I'm pretty sure he would be very proud of what they've become. The same ideology that destroys covenant love and crashed birth rates and turns sex into a worthless currency.
The thing though is like, this guy's talking about Hugh Hefner and destroyed covenant love, but isn't the person who destroyed his covenant love, wasn't that his wife? I'm literally going to Google that right now.
Nations are not reproducing. They actually can't. And the reason that they can't is because once you have a rejection of some type of higher value which tells you to do a thing, in this case to breed and multiply, you're only stuck with the materialist worldview. And under the materialist worldview, why should you have a child at all? If you can do the procreative act absent the child, then why?
Yeah, Hugh Hefner's first wife, Mildred Millie Williams, initiated the end of their marriage by starting divorce proceedings. She confessed to an affair before their wedding, deeply affected Hefner, and led him to grant her permission for an open marriage, a precursor to his later lifestyle. In their 1959 divorce, Hefner didn't remarry for decades, but when he did, he married Kimberly Conrad, his second wife, and then later Crystal Harris. But yeah, that's what I'm saying though, is it's like that's the thing though, is it's like, you got TPUSA Gerby here going, Hugh Hefner destroyed covenant marriage, bro. But it's like, okay, can't we look at this Mildred Millie Williams who literally said I was smashing other dudes when they were supposed to get married? Like, I don't know, man. Like, that's messed up, bro. That would fry my shit too if I had this fiance and I'd been dating her for years, and we were like weeks before the wedding, and we had all our friends flying in for the wedding and stuff, and then she's like, yeah, I was cracking other dudes, and I like, bro, like, first of all, I'm calling off the wedding, but I guess Hefner didn't do that, and he just kind of continued with life kind of in trauma, and it later kind of exploded later in his life into a debaucherous phase. But what I'm trying to say though is, it's like, he literally got slighted by a woman. I mean, and that probably affect his, you know, the outcome and his character and how he saw the world. And I really hate it when anyone, especially these tradcons and stuff like that, Karens, tradcons, whatever it may be, you know, the status quo enforcers, I hate it when they finger wag anyone's lived experience, especially lived experience with women. That's something I really hate when they do.
wouldn't you do that instead of burdening yourself with the result of it, which is a kid? And so once that choice becomes available, many people take it. It adds to societal decay. All of this leads to a lack of reproduction rates, and this is really bad.
These red pill prophets tell men to double down on it. Fight feminism by becoming the male mirror image. Fight fire with the same gasoline that started the blaze. And the worst part, it's a massive grift. Take Andrew Tate, the poster boy. Guy built an entire empire on quote-unquote escaping the matrix, but his main hustle was Hustlers University.
Welcome to the smart
maxing movement, a hyper-fixated quest to max out your physical attractiveness, which you cannot derive from a nihilistic worldview, and that leads to a blatant contradiction. Now, the second and most dangerous aspect of looks maxing that nobody is pointing out is that whether it's intentional or not, it is normalizing the incessant use of technology to maximize the human person and blurring the lines between man and technology. This is the same worldview with genuine humility modeled on Christ's sacrificial love. Women will change, but the solution
bruh, what am I
a
hearing?
telos rooted in Christ.
What am I
Urgency.
hearing?
As Catholics and Christians, we can't sit back while the sexual revolution continues to devour another generation. It's time for us men to step up as true leaders, reclaiming self-improvement not as an end in and of itself, but with a divine purpose, a telos rooted in Christ. The truth is simple. Women will follow the men. When men lead with genuine humility modeled on Christ's sacrificial love, women will change. But
I mean, that is cope. That is at least half cope, bruh. Women, they follow some modicum of either status, and if it's not a status-based society, they're gonna follow force. Yeah. I don't know, that's kind of a delusional blue capsule take.
Solution always starts with the end of male passivity. Tens of millions of men, and probably more, have vanished from the workforce over the last decade, retreating into isolation and hopelessness. For everyone who might be a part of that demographic, let this video wake you up from that sinful slumber. Put on the armor of Christ and defend the word of God. If you're 2025, President Karol Nawrocki signed a law exempting parents with at least 2 children from personal income tax entirely, building on the long-running 500-plus monthly child benefit programs that puts real money in families' hands. Hungary also offers lifelong tax exemptions for mothers with multiple children.
Hungary? Yeah, I've heard about this. I heard they spend, I heard like up to 10% of their GDP now is going towards like family programs and family funding, but I heard it's not really pushing their birth rate above the 2.1, is it? Yeah. I don't know, man. It seems, I don't know.
Loans forgiven for having kids and housing subsidies. Italy and Russia provide baby bonuses and maternity capital, pushing back against the
stream's running a little late, but I really appreciate everyone coming, and I'm gonna check in with y'all later. We're gonna do more of these. Look out for